You know that feeling, right? You've got this huge, important thing you're supposed to be doing, but you find yourself doing literally anything else. Suddenly, reorganizing your spice rack feels absolutely critical. Well, what's really going on there? Let's get into the science behind why we all do this, and maybe, just maybe, figure out how to finally break the cycle.
I mean, it's the ultimate question, isn't it? We make these great plans, we set goals, our intentions are fantastic, and then when it's time to actually do the thing, we just don't. It's so frustrating, and it's easy to think it's some kind of personal failing. But what if I told you it's not really about being lazy at all? It's just about how our brains are wired. And if you feel like you're the only one wrestling with this, you are so not alone. Seriously, research shows that this is incredibly common. One study, for example, found that a staggering 95% of college students procrastinate on their schoolwork. So this isn't some rare flaw, it's pretty much part of the human condition. In fact, this problem is so old, so timeless, that the ancient Greeks actually had a word for it: Akrasia. You've got philosophers like Socrates and Aristotle talking about this exact thing thousands of years ago. It literally means acting against your better judgment, knowing exactly what you should do, but doing something else instead. Sound familiar? Okay, so to really understand why we fall into this Akrasia trap, we gotta look inside our own heads, because it turns out there's a constant battle going on between two different versions of you. So let's meet the two contenders. On one side, you have your future self. This is the you that's amazing at setting goals. Your future self wants to be fit, read a novel, save for retirement, all that good long-term stuff. But then there's your present self. And your present self is the one who actually has to do the work. And what your present self wants, more than anything, is instant gratification. So while future self wants to be healthy, present self is staring at a donut and thinking, yeah, I want that, right now. And there's a scientific name for this whole mess. It's called time inconsistency. All it means is that our brains are naturally programmed to care way more about a reward we can get right now than a bigger reward we might get later. The pleasure of watching just one more episode feels so much more real and tangible than the distant satisfaction of finishing that big project. And that right there is why our present self wins the fight so often. So, we know there's a war in our minds, but what are the specific things that trigger this self-sabotage? Especially when we're staring down a deadline for school or for work. Well, the science has some really interesting answers. A really fascinating study from just this year, 2024, surveyed over 800 college students to try and figure out the biggest psychological drivers of procrastination. And what they found, well, it goes a lot deeper than just bad time management. So the first huge factor they found is something called academic self-efficacy. Fancy term, but it just means your belief in your own ability to get the job done. It's not about how smart you actually are, it's about how confident you feel. It's that little voice in your head that either says, yeah, I can do this, or I'm not so sure. If that voice is full of doubt, you're way more likely to just avoid the task altogether. And the second piece of the puzzle, you guessed it, self-control. This is your ability to manage all those impulses from your present self, to say no to distractions and stay locked in on what your future self actually wants. Think of it like a muscle that helps you choose the hard work over the easy donut. So here's the bottom line. The key finding from the study. It's the combination of low self-efficacy, that nagging, I don't think I can do this feeling, and low self-control that creates the absolute perfect storm for procrastination. When you feel like you're going to fail anyway, and you can't resist temptation, putting things off becomes almost a foregone conclusion. Okay, I know this might all sound a little bit daunting, but here's the really good news. Once you know it's happening, you can actually do something about it. We can build systems and use these clever little tricks to give our future self a fighting chance. So let's look at how to do that. First up, this brilliant technique called temptation bundling. The idea is so simple. You link something you want to do with something you need to do. So, for example, you only let yourself listen to your favorite podcast while you're folding laundry. See what you're doing? You're giving your present self that immediate reward it's craving, which tricks it into getting the long-term task done. It's kind of like bribing yourself, and hey, it works. All right, strategy number 2, you can flip the script. Instead of making the reward immediate, you can make the consequences immediate. Think about it. If you skip a workout on your own, the downside is way off in the future. But if you promise to meet a friend at the gym, the pain of bailing is immediate. You're letting them down right now. Creating that social pressure or even a financial stake, that brings the future pain right into the present. a lot of the time, the problem isn't actually doing the work. The real pain, the real friction is just starting. That first step can feel like pushing a boulder. So the key is to shrink the task down until it's so small, so laughably easy that it feels effortless to start. Check out the novelist Anthony Trollope. This guy was a writing machine with over 40 books to his name. How'd he do it? He never sat down to write a book. That's way too intimidating. Instead, his goal was to write 250 words every 15 minutes. This gave him a little hit of satisfaction, a small win, 4 times an hour. And that momentum kept him going. An even simpler way to do this is called the 2-minute rule. Whatever habit you want to start, just scale it down so it takes less than 2 minutes. Want to read more? Don't commit to a chapter. Just commit to reading 1 page. Want to start running? Your goal isn't to run a 5K. Your goal is to put on your running shoes. The idea is to make starting so easy you can't say no. You'll be surprised how often motivation shows up after you start, not before. Now, these strategies are awesome for tackling a single task. But how do you beat procrastination consistently, day in and day out? The answer isn't about just finding more willpower. It's about building a simple, reliable system you can fall back on. Get this, over 100 years ago, a consultant named Ivy Lee developed this ridiculously simple method for a steel executive. It's just 5 steps. At the end of your workday, you write down the 6 most important things you need to do tomorrow. Then you rank them. The next day, you start with number 1, and here's the key. You don't even look at anything else until number 1 is done. That's it. That's the whole system. So why is this 100-year-old method so powerful? Well, its simplicity is its genius. First, it forces you to actually decide what's important. Second, it completely removes the friction of starting your day. You don't have to waste energy deciding what to do. The decision is already made. And finally, it forces you to single task, which is how we all know deep, meaningful work actually gets done. It's a system for pure clarity and focus. So it really does all come back to that internal battle, doesn't it? Procrastination isn't a character flaw. It's just a constant negotiation between your present self, who wants comfort right now, and your future self, who wants growth down the road. The only question is, which one are you going to empower today? What's one tiny 2-minute action you can take right now to give your future self a win?